Record. Excuse me. 3, 2, 1. Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I have no idea where you're at, but I know you're in the U.S. or somewhere around the world because this show goes worldwide, and we really appreciate it. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. I'm Pete Caliendo. I am your host and cannot thank you enough for joining us, whether it's here live on Facebook. If you have any questions during Facebook, there's, put them in the comments section and we'll ask those questions. And then later on, obviously goes up on YouTube. And our audio goes up on baseballoutsidethebox.com. That's where the audio goes. That podcast has been going on for 3 years. But what we'd like for you to do, and all we ask, if you listen to the show and you really like it, just do us one favor, go to YouTube, subscribe. That's it. YouTube, Peter Caliendo, hit the subscribe button. I'll get that out, folks. Subscribe. And that really helps us out. And the second thing you could do for us, if you really like the show, share it with everybody, and that really helps. So we really appreciate it, and we've always tried to bring you the best baseball show possible with the people that love the challenge, the status quo. That is a big thing for us because, you know what, baseball's been an old-fashioned game for a lot of years. Nothing wrong with it, but there are great new ways to do things, great people in the game, smart people, young people who are progressive, innovative, and we got to hear those ideas. And today we've got a great one, good friend of mine, known him for a long time. He runs a premier baseball program nationally in the U.S., and he started 2012. That is the Rheno Baseball Program. We'll have him explain Rheno, what that stands for. He was a standout Lockport High School catcher, center fielder. Get that, catcher, center fielder. I may ask him about that. 3-time all-conference, went to Illinois State. He played in the Indy ball, an area I love. I did for 10 years. He was with the Gateway Grizzlies. He also coaches one of the teams, the 16-year-old travel teams that they have. They have many of them. They're building one of the premier baseball indoor facilities. I'm looking at it right now online. Unbelievable. We're going to ask Greg about that. Their program is ranked nationally with Perfect Game. We're going to get into a lot of details, a lot of fun with this. So let me welcome my good friend here in Illinois, Greg Blaesing. What's up, buddy?
What's going on, guys? How are you?
Hey, doing good, doing good. I know you're in your complex there and your people are building stuff all over. I'm looking at it. Boy, what an undertaking. What a complex you're building there. I guess, that's a good way to start because that's where you're at.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're probably a week from completion. So all the bells and whistles are going on and finishing up flooring and all that, all the jazz that goes along with it. So I think we're scheduled for final inspection first week in September. So we're right there. Almost.
Tell us what's inside the complex. I see AstroTurf. I see baseball fields. What else?
Yep. So we have kind of some different quadrants. We've got a full major league size infield, fully netted, so you can hit live in there. We've got down the left field line. We've got about 150 feet. So not a true, obviously like baseball field size, but 150 feet, plenty of space there. Down the right field line, we've got 175 feet. We have a 70-yard track for showcases and making sure guys can run the 60 effectively. Like to have some of the bigger companies come in and do some showcases and things like that. We've got a classroom. We've got 6 full-size cages upstairs. And then we also have, like I said, classroom and then strength, speed, and agility area. So we actually have a former player of ours, guy that played for us for a couple of years, Cam Galgano, who runs GPS. They were out in Atlantic. They're moving their full-time business here and will be responsible for training all of our athletes year round. And man, we're excited about Cam. We had our first training session last night for our guys who are playing fall tournaments, and unbelievable response. Just high energy guys, know what he's doing. He was a former player. So all in all, we've got classroom, strength room, plyo areas, plyo walls, 60-yard tracks, full major league infield, and then 6 cages. So kind of everything we could need.
Absolutely, Greg, love it. And we're going to get into that because we're going to get into the long-term development of younger players. Before we do, talk about, because you have a lot of travel teams also, talk about those teams, the ages, and obviously how they compete a little bit differently because maybe your 10-year-olds or 11, whatever age you have, compete at different places, different times.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess working backwards, the high school guys, we've got 15s through 18s, we've got different age groups, different talent levels. And we kind of try to always think about like, okay, this is our guys that are guys that need to travel a little bit. If they need to be seen by more schools or, bigger tournaments, you're kind of forced to travel a little bit. And I think we're kind of starting to see some tournament companies get back where we don't have to travel as much, but the high school level, you kind of travel when needed. I think our top teams, 3-4 weekends of summer, we'll go to Georgia, we'll go to Indy, we'll go to Kansas City, kind of those hotbeds, as you will. As we go a little bit younger, some teams will travel, but not so much for the recruiting side, to be completely honest. When a guy's 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, if we're focused on trying to get them to, an SEC school when they're 12 years old, I think we're doing it wrong. So development all the way throughout the program is always what our focus is, and then creating some recruiting opportunities in there. We actually do go down to 7-year-olds. They play all their all their in-house, their local leagues, and it's just kind of an intro to travel baseball. So we play on Sundays, and then after their in-house season gets over, we'll play 2 or 3 tournaments with them. So kind of an intro where they can work with some instructors and see if it's a good fit for them before they go full-time travel. So
yeah, this is gonna be a lot of fun, folks. I wanted to bring Greg on because I've known him and he runs a quality program and just a great program. I want to get into some of the details. One thing I want everybody to know that, and he's had 225 players commit to college baseball. You can go to their website and we'll give it out. We'll put it on the show notes. Their Twitter is Rheno Baseball. One of the things, and I'm going to go ahead a little bit and come back a little bit because of the 225 collegiate commits. I watch social media. So I don't call it social. Sometimes it's unsocial media. People can be pretty critical, and I want to address this because I want to understand it also myself. People take credit for guys being committed to college baseball, and somebody might say, well, what did you do really to do that? Well, they spent a lot of time with you guys, possibly since they were 7 years old or 10 years old. You put a lot of time into them. So obviously you're proud of that, and you should be able to promote it. Am I correct in that, or is there more to it?
Yeah, that's it's a tough question. I think if you're a 17, 18-year-old kid going off to college, it's not just your travel program. It's your high school coach, it's your parents, it's every kid, every person that's interacted with that kid. So, I think a lot of times the travel team will get credit for the commit, but man, it takes a whole village, right, to get guys to where they are. The academic advisors in their school to make sure grade-wise they're where they should be, and it's a big undertaking to get guys to the right college, and not every guy is a Division I type player. A lot of our guys will make recommendations. Hey, look, you can go that route. But maybe there's no money there for them, or hey, you've got this great local, junior college or NAI or Division III school, and academically it's strong, and financially it's going to be a better move for you. And by the way, you're going to play there. The one thing that we hate to see any player do is go off just to say they committed to the biggest school possible, and a year down the road they go, I'm never going to see the field, and then they've got to transfer out. So we really want to get guys kind of in the right spot, and that's where everyone comes into play. Every part of their baseball community comes into play. So,
well said, man. I definitely could not have said it better than that. That was outstanding. I agree 100%. That was fantastic, folks. Again, that's why I wanted Greg on the show. Greg, the other part of it is it'd be neat to know a little bit about progressively what you do for your players. As you said, you go to showcases and they're exposed by it. And obviously the player, you mentioned many people are part of the process. The player themselves, they're the ones who have to really put in the hard work and smart work. But what do you guys do as an organization more to kind of promote that player, to let colleges know about them other than showcases?
There's a lot. We got a full-time recruiting guy, Andrew Tahaco. He's been with us since the beginning. It was him and his brother Brian Tahaco and myself that kind of got this whole program started. And Andrew's our, like I said, full-time recruiting coordinator. So I think the first thing is honesty. And you've got to let a player know where they stand. And most of the time, it's not the player that is fooled by thinking they're a Division I guy. Like, they're on the field, they see what a Division I prospect looks like. They know if they're not at that level. Most of the time, it's the education of the parents to kind of say, hey, look, this is where he fits. This is the level. So Andrew does a great job with that and being honest. Most of the time, people don't like to hear it. I got a 5-year-old boy. I'm probably going to be upset one day if somebody says, hey, he's a Division III player, but the truth is what the truth is. So,
but again, educating, Greg, educating parents, I think this is important, right? Educating parents and understanding that all levels have great baseball. I mean, I've seen Division III programs beat Division II programs. I played at UIC when it first started. It was a Division I program. Well, it shouldn't have been. It was only Division I program in baseball because of basketball. We weren't ready for Division I. So there's many, even though they're different levels, there's many positives of every level, correct?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I mean, and it's, man, some of the local guys like Ed Matthew and North Central, what he does over there, that's right in our backyard. And we've sent some players over there. They've had the greatest experience in a competitive program. Those are good baseball teams. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, there's all different levels of talent and success within each division. So, yeah, I think it's tough for players right now because they are, they're on Twitter, they're on whatever, and everyone's blessed to be offered a spot at wherever. And, so everyone wants to go to Texas A&M or, pick your school. Unfortunately, there's only so many spots available. So trying to get guys to fall out of love with the D1 recruit, if they need to fall out of love with it, that's an important part of the process. So,
I think you hit on the button, and that's the education. So the player's not disappointed later when he does try to go there, even the walk on possibly, and then, doesn't get picked. Placing the player in the right spots, boy, that's critical. I agree with you. That's awesome. Now take us back a little bit. When you first started,
yeah.
we're all going to go through growing pains. We're going to make mistakes. Take us through some of the mistakes, possibly the growing pains you went through and where you're at now in the program.
As a player or
No, as an organization.
because I've
As an
made a lot of mistakes in
organization.
both.
Yeah.
Oh man, as a program, I think there's different types of issues. One, the business side of it. You start a travel program, you go, oh, it's easy. We'll just get kids some uniforms, we'll train them, and that's a travel program. And there's a million more things that go into it. So it's all the little business mistakes that you make. But you get through those. This is I think our 9th year, and I had a different program before Rhino started, and so kind of learning. Just the business side, which, to most people, most families, they may not care about those things, but man, if you're bad at business, your program is probably going to suffer. Right. And so I think you've got to be good on both. You've got to be good on the business side. And then on the actual training side and development side, that is an everyday learning process, and there's probably been a million things that we've learned along the way. I think for us, where we kind of our wheelhouse is always understanding really what we're trying to do. And that's going to be it's always long-term development. It has to be, and you see guys that, like Ben Zobrist, a guy that was, local guy. And I'll never forget when, man, I think it was going to my junior year in college. I was playing for a collegiate league, and, we see the roster come out, and we're like, who's this guy? He's some D3 punk, whatever he was. And turns out he was league MVP, and the guy was a stud. So, maybe when he left high school, maybe he wasn't as good as other guys, but getting our players to understand that and go, okay, it doesn't matter where you are right now. What matters is we get you to your ceiling. And that has to be training and development based. So, I think when you always focus on development, you're going to make the right decisions for the players. And they're our customers. We owe it to them to give them the best experience possible and help them get there. So, with that comes getting the right trainers. And we got such a good training staff we brought in this year. A lot of former guys, not just former players, but guys just finished up, Division I careers, and guys who were head high school baseball coaches for a number of years. Just guys that all follow the same philosophy. And so we're really looking forward to our staff this year.
Behind a successful programs, obviously your family. If they're not there, the hours you put in. Travel baseball is not, it's not a 5-hour job per day. I mean, it's long hours. It's like you said, it's travel. I'm going to talk about your family, the support they gave, but also you mentioned a couple things. The success of the program. It sounded like the coaches have got to be the foundation of your success, because without great coaching or very good coaching, the program's going to go downhill.
Yeah, and that's completely accurate. You could have a great idea or conceptual plan on paper, and if you don't have, put it this way, there's only so much time that as a staff we can work with players, right? So we need our head coaches of teams, we need all of our other instructors, we need everybody to be rowing the boat the exact same way, and so everyone has to be bought on the same concept and the same culture. So yeah, the backbone of the program is always our coaches, and that goes from our part-time 7-year-old coaches to our full-time youth coaches to our summer coaches to our fall coaches to our instructors. We've all got to be, drinking the same Kool-Aid, if that makes sense. So
Absolutely, absolutely. And I know there's a lot of travel programs, not a lot, but some travel programs I've seen that because they try to expand so fast, they couldn't keep up with the coaching because you got to find good coaching, make sure they're the right people, train and possibly even train them according to the system you have. I mean, if you can't keep up with that and you're trying to go too fast because you're trying to make too much money too quick, that could hurt you.
yeah, and to be completely honest, we early on, we were in I'd say the late stage of the travel boom, if you will, like 2012, 2013, like things had already started growing on the travel side. And so we kind of got into that when we first started. And we went from our first year, we had 10 teams. Our second year, we had 20 teams. Our third year, we had 28 teams. So
Wow.
you're talking about huge growth. And it was hard to find coaches for each team that made sense. And sometimes you when you're going through trials, you go, hey, we like these guys and let's form another team. And, you kind of forget, oh, we need a coach. We need a guy that's going to treat these players right. And it does get easier over time. I mean, I think this year on our high school coaching staff, I think we maybe have, so we have 10 high school teams, and I think we have one coach that's new, and he was a former player for us, and he's going to be instructor this year. But besides that, I mean, it's the same guys now at that point, and it's much easier to get through. And there's times that we've had a coach and we just go, hey, thanks for your service, but it doesn't fit our mold. And those are some of the growing pains that you go through.
Absolutely. And obviously your coaches have been with you. And what's kind of cool is also the coaches that, the players that played for you come back to coach. That shows a lot. And now they're getting into a career and that could lead to something else in the future once they get that experience with you guys. Now, one of the issues early on, and I'm not sure it's as much of an issue now. It could be a little bit. You're the expert in this. You've been in this a long time. And that is, we've all got friends in the high school industry. I think you play for Jim Hall. Yeah, right. So you play for one of the best high school coaches in the country, in my opinion. Jimmy's outstanding. And I'm going to have you talk about him if you like. But my question about the program is, there were conflicts with high school coaches early on. The conflicts being, maybe lack of communication. The high school coach in the summer would have them, maybe to Wednesday, and then all of a sudden they had to travel on Thursday, the players, or even Friday. Pitching. There was a lot of different things, and some of it's still going on. What pains did you go through? How did you deal with them, and recommending to other programs out there how to deal with those situations if they get into that?
Yeah, those still go on, for sure. And there's and I get it. We believe in our program. High school coaches believe in their program. And so when players really start to get spread thin, where you might have, like you said, I mean, probably 3-4 years ago, most high school summer programs were Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and sometimes Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the travel programs would be Wednesday. The travel terms would be Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So, when you have high school coaches and travel coaches that both get it and understand what we're trying to do, and there's trust between both programs, that's a win. For really our primary goal in the off season is development and getting guys bigger and stronger and faster and any way to help players out. When we get to the summer at the high school level, it becomes a lot more of exposure. And I think earlier you used the term exposed, right?
Mm-hmm.
Exposure goes both ways, right? So if we send the wrong team to the wrong exposure level tournament, that player got exposed, and that can be a bad thing. So, I think the relationship between high school coaches and travel coaches or travel programs, there's got to be trust there. And when we first started, that was really hard because you've got some perennial powerhouse high school teams, you've got some perennial powerhouse travel programs, and normally when they're really successful on both sides of that line, they've gone through some growing pains, and you have to earn the trust of high school coaches. So we've got, I think, some great relationships with some high school coaches in the area where the vast majority of our players come from. But yeah, that does still exist, and there's always going to be that little, in the back of your head, that little power trip, right? And we all have to get past that on both sides, because man, if I'm more worried about my credentials or what I've done as the guy that runs a program, I've done it wrong, because the player is all that matters.
And a lot of things you said is going to answer this question, but I still want to bring it up, because you see it, and I hear it a lot. Oh boy, travel programs, all about money. It's business. They don't care, and anytime someone is at the top, because again, you're challenging the status quo in a lot of ways, because there is a lot of great things that travel programs do. And we'll talk about some of the things possibly that, some travel programs don't do right. But what do you say about to the people that always bring that up? It's all about money. That's it.
Yeah, I pay what you get for, to be completely honest. I mean,
Yeah.
we could go out and run a much less expensive program and not train our guys and not provide the instructors and the facility, and we could have a much less expensive travel program, which basically paid for, tournaments and some uniforms. And you know what? There's a role for that type of program as well.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even fault guys that run just a quick little, hey, let's have a summer. That there's a role for that. There's certain players that are looking for that. For us, in terms of, when we do, hey, the program's really expensive. Yeah, it is. I get it. And it's not just something you go, hey, let's just throw our kid in travel baseball and spend all this money and not really know what it's about. So for us, it's being transparent and going, hey, look, yes, it's an expensive program, and here's the things that you get for it. Your kid's going to be trained 3 days a week from, middle of September all the way until this upcoming year will be different because of high school baseball being moved back. But, we're going to train them. We're going to give them strength, speed, and agility 3 days a week. We're going to give them all their metrics. We're going to oversee their recruiting. They're going to get to use the facility whenever they want. Every time that they're working with a coach, it's going to be a guy that was a former college player or former pro player at some level. So the knowledge is going to be there. We're going to run classroom sessions. We're going to watch the grades. We're going to walk them through what player makeup is. And we're going to do that every single week. And you put all that stuff together, it's expensive, So I guess on the back end, if somebody says it's more expensive and they don't see the value in it, we say, hey, we wish you the best of luck. It's not for everybody, but yeah, it's expensive. When you got a $3-4 million building that is there for baseball players, that in itself is a big cost, So we do hear that. I think we hear it less now than we used to.
All right.
Because when we were newer, people would say, well, why is it expensive? Now people have seen it more, so it's like people will come to us and say, hey, we've heard a lot about your program. We heard how you train guys, and they kind of know the cost going in.
Absolutely. And obviously the time that you've been doing this since 2012 shows the success behind it. And I actually will say, because I've said, yeah, it could be expensive, but actually thinking about it now, everything you brought up, I think it's not that expensive because you offer so much to these players and parents. Because I think, in education, I believe there's a three-pronged process. It's coaching, players, and parents. Right. We don't educate all three. You're going to have some conflict in there, but if you can try to educate all three, we stay consistent. So I don't think as expensive as people think it is. I think actually could be even underpriced. I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of emails. So send those emails. Right. And I'll give you an example. You take a trip with Caliendo Sports International around the world, it's a cultural baseball, softball, or any sport trip. But now that's expensive because that $3,000 or $2,000 or $4,000, that's just for that week that you're going in that country. Now, is there a value behind it? I can give you a list of value that players, parents, or anybody going on the trip will get from it that they would not get from anything else. And that's up to us to show them the value behind what they're paying for. So I agree with you. I think you guys obviously you run a fantastic program. Pricing's not an issue. Now, in that case, during these tough times with COVID, kind of explain a little bit what you've been doing to keep the players motivated, interested, developing, whether it be mentally or physically.
Yeah, so I think it forced our hand really to get more technological, where I think it was like we shut down, I want to say it was like March 23rd or whatever. And we were the first travel program, I believe, anywhere around here to just go, hey, we are not going to practice. Because we were unsure of really how bad this thing was going to get, really what the concerns were going to be. It was like now, I mean, people still don't exactly know what it is, right? Mm-hmm. So, within a week, we sat down with all of our instructors and we said, hey, we have to go fully virtual. Here's all the ways that we can do it. So I think for end of March, April, and May, until we were kind of able to start to get out and play again, we ran, I believe it was 21 Zoom sessions per week in all different disciplines. So we had Cam Delgado from GPS run strength, speed, and agility virtual sessions, where he would, guys could actually demonstrate and you could see it. He talking about nutrition
And
and
guys could do it at home,
do it. They would do it at home, yeah,
in their backyard or inside.
in their backyard, yeah. And then
Nice.
I handled all of our catching Zooms we ran three sessions every week, one for high school, one for the little guys, and then one for like your junior high guys. Jeff Stanek ran our hitting Zooms, who's another Lockport guy.
Mhm.
Andrew Hacco ran all of our infield stuff. We had guys that ran outfield stuff. So it didn't matter what type of player you are, what age you were. There was typically 3 sessions per week that guys could hop on. And at the time, it was really, it was the best you could do, and then we could also teach our players like, hey, by the way, we're doing all this, but you sitting in front of a computer just listening, it doesn't do you any good unless if you're going to get out in the backyard and work on this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And sorry about that.
It's all right. We take no calls, folks. Sorry. One day we'll be that high tech.
Right. And that kind of led then to something else that we called Coach Check. And Coach Check was, for us, was post Zoom sessions. We would have players send us videos of their drill work and questions and anything like that. So there was a Coach Check for catching. There was one for infield. There was one for pitchers. There was one for wherever. Where you maybe on a Zoom call, you got 16 kids in front of you on a screen, right? And you can only see little bits and pieces, but we'd ask mom and dad to get involved and say, hey, videotape your son doing these drills, videotape this, send us an email. And then our coaches did a good job getting back to everybody and say, hey, this looks good. Here's some additional drill work you can do. So, that's how COVID went until basically June. And then we got out and started playing, and high school teams traveled all over the place. And, we were in Georgia and Indy and Wisconsin and Iowa and Kansas City. And, it was, luckily for us, I don't think we had a single player or family affected by COVID traveling, which is great.
What protocols were taken? It'd be interesting to know what protocols were taken during the tournaments. Because I'll tell you why. I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina. I talked to Mike Huff about this, with the White Sox. Mike was on doing the color at the time, and I'm watching television. There's a 17U event going on, pretty high level and very good. But as I'm watching television, there didn't seem to be a lot of protocols being taken, in the dugouts that probably should have been. And again, I'm not a doctor. I'm not here to criticize anybody. I have no idea what works. But what kind of precautions were taken at some of these events?
Well, I think each tournament company was a little bit different, and that's.
Yeah, because of every state.
Every state was different, and really the follow through on certain tournament companies. I got the feeling that some tournament companies had just said, "Hey, here's our rules. They're super strict in order to be able to run their tournaments." And I didn't see a whole lot of follow through on that. I think the biggest things were, wearing a mask into the park, trying to spread your stuff out a little bit. But really, once you get a player on the field, it is really hard. Like almost every place said, hey, no high fives, no fist bumps, no whatever. When you get a player in the heat of a moment and they're competing, the last thing they're thinking about is, I can't high five my guy.
It's a habit.
We still saw dog piles this summer. We saw guys giving hugs, so it was, and that was every tournament that we went to. So I think the tournament companies did a good job trying to set the rules up. It fell on the individual teams and coaches to enforce.
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. You were saying.
I was going to say, even the little things like, coaches being responsible. We had a coach that wasn't feeling real well. Turned out he didn't have COVID, but we had to fill in a coach for him. Temperature checks, stuff like that, where players had to be honest and stuff like that. So, it was.
Greg, an area that was of concern for independent ball, and that's why a lot of independent teams did not play, and also high schools and obviously colleges. Some will tell you, some will not, and that is liability, because and I have a hard time understanding that, because if you allow your kid to go play, well, then you just blew that liability. I mean, you said it's okay to do it, but were you worried about liability issues there? Because I don't think the insurance companies were covering that.
We were. Unfortunately, it's like the hot coffee at McDonald's world that we live in, right? So, We had our standard waiver that we sent out to all the players, like, hey, this is you making the decision to go out and train. You might get hurt. We're not going to be, liable. But then we had to come up with a COVID waiver. And for a lot of the tournament companies, in order for us to participate, it wasn't just give us your roster. It was give us your roster, and then we need a waiver from every single player, COVID based. So I don't even know if those waivers hold up in court. I have no idea. Luckily, we didn't need them, but it's just the world we live in. Anything goes wrong, point the finger at somebody else. And in reality, look, it just like you said, if you're sending your son out to play competitive baseball, there's a risk there.
Yeah.
And
And I've got to do the same thing internationally. I've got to have a waiver and just just go along with it and see what happens. Hopefully we take the right precautions, like you said. And you guys did a great job, so that sounds awesome. All right, the coaches are important. Talk about your coaches, the program you have. You have a standardized program, possibly, or at least some protocols that they follow, and then some training, and then training you guys did during COVID. So you're continuously educating your own coaches also. I'm sure a lot of them take a lot of pride in getting better themselves. But talk about maybe how important that is and what you do.
Yeah, so on the educational side for the coaches, one of the things we're excited, we've always been in smaller facilities, so we've been on top of each other, to be completely honest. When we started, we had 7,000 square feet, and then for the next 3 years, we had 16,000 square feet. And this past year, we were renting 2 cages year round, so we literally had no space. But what we've always done is that continuing education for coaches. And so part of that benefit of this classroom that we have here is to run coaches training and parent training and all the different training that is needed besides just the players. Every year we take our staff to ABCA, and it's a huge expense, but it's important because, I know I've seen you there. I've seen so many guys there. Like, those are the brightest minds in baseball. And so if we want to be on the cutting edge of teaching and learning, that's an opportunity for all of us to go to. And that's the things that we draw out every year. You can't take everything that you hear at the ABCA because there's so much information, So for us, we kind of send some guys to the youth breakouts. We send some guys to listen to, the brightest hitting mind or the most cutting edge hitting guy. We'll watch catching guys. So you put all that stuff together, and that kind of creates all of our questions going, are we doing this right? And if we aren't, how do we fix it? We run an annual coaches meeting between Illinois and Wisconsin, our group up in Wisconsin, where we all get together and we say, okay, this is what we're thinking. Do you guys have any suggestions? Are we missing something? So the education of the coach, and primarily our instructors it's so important, and everything funnels down. It goes from, our staff, the guys that run our program, to our instructors to our coaches to our families to their kids, and so, but it's got to start at the top. And so the education, it's sometimes it's mind boggling to me that some of the stuff I hear, maybe a player that we have, he'll be getting a lesson somewhere else, which we're great with, they got a relationship there. Awesome. But sometimes we'll hear stuff that it's like, man, that teaching, no one's talked about that since 1985. We're 25 years past that, so, it's sometimes you have stuff, but I think most coaches in our area, they do a good job staying on the up and up. We watch tons of high school, head coaches be at these big national events. They're learning. So I like our whole area. I think most people have the right mindset and thought process of what we're trying to do.
Absolutely. I agree with you. I think coaching is getting better and better. And I love the young people that are challenging the status quo at times, and sometimes just saying, why do we do it this way? Is there a better way? So I love that part. And shout out to the ABCA. This year will be a virtual convention, unfortunately, but it will be a lot of fun because they do a great job virtually. So it's going to be, they're going to have everything, exhibits, different speakers, whether it's be the youth, the older level. They got everything going on. So folks, go to abca.org. At the convention last year, 7,000 coaches, and sold out. Not only sold out, but you're seeing pro guys, like you mentioned, travel teams. People are getting more and more serious in the development of the game. Greg, I'm going to get into long-term development in a minute here, but you coach for Coach Hall. I'm just kind of curious. You played for Coach Hall. Tell us something that you learned, a couple things you learned from Coach Hall that you took into your coaching? Because those were different times back then than they are now.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I loved every second of it, to be completely honest. He was as hard nosed as they come. He was a football coach in a baseball player's uniform. Um, he was, he stood up in my wedding. I mean, my dad is awesome. I love my dad, but Jim was like a second dad to me. If I screwed up, man, I'd get the finger in the chest, and I knew it. I knew it was coming. But he demanded energy. He demanded you do your best. You give every ounce of energy. He demanded player character. He was a culture guy, a program culture guy before that term culture was even around. And so for me to play for him has been it was one of the best experiences of my life. And we had a really special group. We had the Serafini brothers there, all three of them. I got a chance to play with my brother, for 1 year. So we had a lot of talent there, and that was when we made some good runs. And I know they did after again, but that was really fun to play for those guys. And it wasn't just Coach Hall. It was Coach Markel's. Butch was a no nonsense type guy. So it was intense, but it was fun, and it was man, those were I think a lot of the reason why the way that our program is set up and the way that we coach is because of the experience that we had at Lockport. We've got a number of Lockport guys that have been coaches for us and instructors for us that all played for Jimmy. A lot of our youth coaches now are guys that played for Coach Hall, and now their boys are coming up through the program. They're 9, 10, 11, 12 years old, and they're head coaches of their youth teams, and they're intense. And it's because it's how we grew up. It was a different world, and I'm glad we get to hang on to a little bit of that. So.
Yeah, and Coach Hall, that whole area is a hotbed of baseball. And the other part I know of Coach Hall, and what I love about him is that he's a constant learner, always asks questions. He's been in a game more than you and I combined, yet he's still asking us questions of what we think about certain things. He's got such an open mind. But the discipline, the culture, I think you hit on the button. Those are key areas, especially nowadays, because we can't forget the discipline part of, teaching young men, young girls, what it is to be disciplined, to create great habits, to treat people well, all those positive things. As we get into the long-term development, before we do, one other thing, because you hear this a lot about showcases. You say, well, here, it's a moneymaker again, and, you're going to 6 or 7, you don't need to do all that. What's your recommendation to your players? Because you did mention some things about the showcases early, but what's your recommendation to players when it comes to showcases? Because, you can't keep spending money. But, do you need to go to all of them, or how many, or how do you pick them?
Right. Yeah, no, I think each player and their talent level is a little bit different, at the high school level. I mean, if you're going to a showcase when you're in junior high, I'm not saying it's always wrong, because there are some 14-year-olds that are throwing the ball mid to upper 80s. And yeah, that for those big giant SEC Power 5 schools, like, they do need to see them early, but that's a percent of a percent. That's such a small group. Once our guys get to high school, we do recommend each of them do kind of an open ID or an evaluation each year. So maybe one PBR event or one perfect game event, kind of update their numbers. And that's just to kind of figure out where they're at. I think that helps our staff and even the families kind of go, hey, my kid is way behind these other guys that are committing this place. So that's the educational component. And the nice part about the open ID showcases is they're not overly expensive. Once players kind of start to get recognized and recruiting starts to happen, will they go a little bit more frequently when they get the special invite ones? Yeah, they will. The college ones, I hear so many people go, hey, those college ones are an absolute moneymaker. They run camps every weekend. Well, you know what? They don't have a very big staff. So one, they got to pay for more staff, right? And that's a way for volunteers to actually earn somewhat of a living. But man, I'll tell you what, if I was a guy and I went to Illinois State, when I was going through high school, if they would have had those camps, I would have for sure gone back. I would have definitely have seen the campus and see if I like the coaches. So there is a time when those become important. I don't think players need to go every single weekend. I don't think it needs to be something that is the development still matters. So if you're going to go to Illinois State camp, and even if they don't even if they walk out of there and they don't feel like you're a fit for them, man, if you learn something from a guy that played or coached at a high level, did you get better? It's still probably worth it, you know? So yeah, showcases can be money makers, but I think when you do them right, and you ask the questions like, what is this about? How many should I be going to? Um, then you can typically go to the ones that are correct for that player.
And on the flip side, you even mentioned that when you go to tournaments, you're very selective,
Mhm.
ages, tournaments, how far, how many, because it can get expensive. Also, if you're just doing all the tournaments all the time, and you got to travel, you got hotel, and the kid's only 10 years old or 9 years old,
Right.
that could be tough on parents also. So I love that you said that, and feel free to add anything. Once I'm going to ask you, because here's the thing I wanted to ask you about. Um, I remember running the NTIS program for USA Baseball. I always told parents, look, I understand if you don't have $125 to do it, don't do it. I mean, don't put it on credit card. Don't go too far with that. But at the same time, if you have it, start them young at maybe 11, 12. Let them try at least one because of the experience, right? Because later on they're going to have to go to tryouts, maybe in high school. So because that way you get the experience of what it is to take a ground ball by yourself, everybody watching, right? Or running a 60 against somebody else, different things. Have you had situations? Because I had this. Um, they come to the NTIS and they run the 60 or do whatever arm speed. And they say, well, but, I did this at this other complex. I was better, there. Why is my time different here? But on the flip side of that, I think it's good because they get evaluated by somebody else and not always your staff.
Right.
Talk about that, what you think.
Yeah, I think that's even like the game day showcases, the JP sports events, the younger ones where guys get a chance to play with maybe overall higher level youth player, and then they take them through a showcase. The first time when all the eyes are on you, it's nerve wracking, you
Yeah.
know. And I never had a showcase when I was growing up and trying to go off to college and stuff like that. And I remember I had and I can't remember how old I was, but there was the Cubs had like an event. There was 5 catchers that were invited, and like I had Nick Tresniak out there, and Tres was one of the better catchers that have ever come out of Illinois. You know, and there was 4 other guys that were there besides myself, and I can't imagine. I still to this day remember just how poorly I did because I was so nervous. I hit like crap. I didn't run well. I didn't even catch well. I didn't throw well, nothing. And man, I went through 2 hours of like absolute nervousness. And would I have performed better had I been more comfortable in those situations? Probably, you know? So for a younger guy, just to kind of get in the habit of going, hey, you know what? Some days I'm gonna be good, some days I'm gonna be bad, but just to learn to control some emotions and get their mindset right. I think that is important, and it's fun. It's fun to be invited to the events like that. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
and you got it opens up. It gives kids a chance to communicate with other kids. Deal with kids they've never met before. Those are human skills that you're teaching, life skills.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I
And on
love
the
it.
flip side of
And
that, though, I would say on the flip side of that, though, that just because you get an invite to one of those events, the thing that we see a lot of times with our youth guys is we have to like ground them again. We have to go, hey, look, just because you got an invite to that, it doesn't mean you're the next whoever, Lincecum or whatever. You got a lot of work to do. So it's that balance of creating opportunity, keeping them grounded, making them stay focused all the way throughout the process.
it's interesting. And you were the Chicago Tribune all state. Look where you went, even though you were nervous in the tryouts. And I get the same issues when we take teams overseas because I might send an invitation out saying we'd love to invite you to come on the team going to Cuba. Next it's in the newspaper, they're on Team USA. They made the national team. Well, no, it's not the national team. It's an experience of a lifetime. And
Right.
you're going to go compete against some pretty good players. You're going to train against those players. You're going to compete within players that you don't know from other states.
Right.
But sometimes I know parents want to make it a little bit more bigger than it is, and you have to ground them a little bit.
Yep.
Say, slow down a little bit. Hey, speaking about slowing down, long-term development. Sometimes I think we want things quick. You've got kids starting from 7 years old, right, all the way to high school. Where do you start with your 7-year-olds? Because the biggest criticism is, man, in the States, we're playing way too many games. We're not practicing enough.
Yep.
Um, Talk about that, what you think, what your process, what you've seen that's helped develop your players long term when it comes to practice and playing games.
Yeah, no, that is, everyone loves to play games and everyone loves tournaments because people love to compete in general, you know.
Sure.
So on the development side, though, Craig Tomzak, who was the head coach at Mattia Valley for a long time, he has two boys in our program now that are 10 years old this upcoming year, and so he came in when the boys were 7, and you know, that was a great learning experience for us. You know, as he'd be like, "Hey, I think we maybe should do some more of this stuff and work on this." And so, you know, at 7, what do? You try to get them to understand the little things like how to carry your own bag, right? How to come prepared to a practice, you know, how to keep mom and dad out of the dugout because you forgot your water. Like, so just some basic responsibilities of the game, how to tie their shoes, how to shake hands, how to line up, you know, all that stuff. But then on the actual baseball side, you know, you look at training a 7-year-old player, when they come in, most of them are just terrible playing catch. And man, if you want to be a 7-year-old travel baseball player, awesome, 8 years old, whatever. But you better be able to play catch and play catch well, you know. And I know Coach Hall used to always tell me, I think when he was with you at some of the overseas trips, like the Japanese team would not drop a ball for 3 or 4 games in a warm up
Yep.
ever. And defensively, they're sound. You know, I mean, how are you going to how are you going to be a shortstop, move to your left, field the ground ball, get rid of it quick, and hit the first baseman right in the chest when we can't play catch effectively? You know, so I think obviously as the skill level moves up and the guys get older, you start to focus on more things. But there's some very basic things for younger guys that we got to play catch. We got to make routine ground balls. We have to understand how to move the baseball. You know, so on the development side, having a guy like Craig Tomzak come in who had kids at that age, saw it differently than we did. That was a kind of a good movement for our program. You know.
And Greg, a big deal, and you brought him in, you said athletic development, a big process of development. I mean, I'll take you as an example. I ask this to every guest, under the age of 12 or even, you know, maybe 13, 14, multi-sport athlete or only baseball player?
Multi-sport.
Yeah. Answers
Soccer, basketball, baseball.
across the board. And we keep telling parents, you know, let these kids enjoy other sports under the age of 12. Not only that, but you've got athletic development. And that's the thing we see more than anything. They need that more than anything because they can't move properly. And why, you know, they can't move for certain reasons. And those need to be corrected before you even try to teach a skill. Talk about that.
Yeah, so so functional movement screens, things like that. Those are things that we've started to get into the past 3-4 years. When Cam Galgano came in, he's like, "This is how we're going to train the guys, but this first week, all we're going to do is these 30 things." And the 30 things, it's how fast is the guy, laterally can they move. But then there's stuff like ankle mobility. Do they have the ability to hip drop? You know, what is their range of motion on their throwing arm? There's so many things that I think we overlook. Sometimes it's like, hey, let's go hit with this player. But man, if they can't get through a baseball or stay through a baseball, sometimes it's not that the kid isn't listening or not trying. It's their body simply cannot do it yet, right? So having the right staff in place that looks for those things and tests for those things is really pretty important. And then once your body can move the right way, now we can start to train a player and get through those things. I think the more specialized that our young players become, the more movement issues we have, right? I think like if you watch a guy, it's not too odd that your best baseball player is your best football player, is your best basketball player, and oh, by the way, he's on the golf team and plays basketball. And everything they do, they move the right way because you have to when you start playing all these different sports. So when a player, you know, unless if he hates every other sport, man, we love when guys play other sports. It makes our job easier, way easier, right?
Yep, love it. And you know, and I know when I was a kid, I wish I'd have known that because I played baseball only, and then didn't realize, you know, they asked me to play football. Football can teach toughness. You know, I mean, there's a lot of different things that every sport can teach that you then can transfer into baseball. You know, I got to tell you this, and I want to ask because I'm out the other day. I ride my bike every day. You know, exercise is important, and I always tell parents it's important that you lead by example. I was outside and I'm coming to a field. This is the first time in 20 years that I remember, maybe longer. and all of a sudden I see 10 kids, maybe 12 kids, 11 years old possibly, playing on their own baseball. Never seen it because, baseball is so organized, but there's so much to learn from that, right? Just to play on your own. No adults, no coaches, no nothing. We used to do, I'm older than you are, but we used to, when we were kids, we'd make up lineups, we'd make up decisions. Sometimes if we didn't have a field, fine, we play right field out, right? We're lined straight up the middle, which means you had to pull the ball, or we play left field out. Now you got to hit the ball the other way. We figured it out and had a lot of fun. There was a lot of learning behind that. I guess my question is, you guys have a large, all year round, you're going in a lot of ways. There's time off that they get. I understand that. But in your stages of your development, do you do other things to kind of break the monotony of always training baseball or anything else that maybe I didn't think of?
Yeah, we do. We do. I mean, obviously the primary focus, we're paid to train guys, but
Absolutely.
we'll do some football, we'll run routes, we'll have some fun with the guys. We'll play, we try not to play dodgeball.
Right.
It's as tempting as it is. The last time we played it, I think it was probably 4 or 5 years ago. Guy was throwing a ball, got hit in the hand, broke his hand out for the season. So, yes, we try to keep it fun. I think a lot of the stuff that happens on the strength, speed, and agility side with Cam, we have like a program day that we do where, guys will, and these are kind of in the winter, these are on our weekends. A player can be here for classroom, for hitting, for arm care, we do a yoga session, we do defensive breakouts, and then we do something called strongman. And so strongman is all the kids are in that age group. We pair them up. There's 2 teams and everything is competitive based. And that's not swinging a bat or whatever. It's flipping tires and it's tug of war and it's all these different things that we can do that are really challenging, but it has nothing to do with baseball.
Love
right?
it.
So, I will say this though. So we love doing stuff that's not baseball because at some point as an instructor, when you're in a cage for 30 or 40 hours a week,
Yeah.
you want to check out. Right. So, the one thing we give our guys little breaks throughout the course of the season. And I do see a lot of our young guys, and I don't know what it is. It's nothing that we've done. Maybe it's the type of parents that we have, but, like we always see videos, like they play wiffle ball, their birthday parties are, they invite 20 kids and they play their own games. And to me, like, that's where you really learn. Right? It's just playing the game. And so many times kids don't learn because they're so scared of screwing up or so whatever. When they're just playing, they get freedom to fail. And that's important,
Absolutely. And I look at you brought up the Japanese. I look at the Japanese and I think we're getting away from this a little bit. And I don't want to categorize everybody in this because, like I said, there's great programs out there. But, I'm watching a tournament and all of a sudden I see a young kid put on a ring, and he came in second place or even first place. And it's a 9-year-old tournament. And he's got a ring better than mine. And I'm thinking to myself, wait a second, guys. I mean, don't we have to earn these things? In Japan, you don't even get the right uniform till you earn it. You don't get a name on your back till you earn it. You don't get a cap till you earn it. Certain things you got to earn. I guess my question is, you know where I'm going with this. What are some of the incentives you guys build into your programs to show kids that you have to earn things that we're just not going to give to you? And I get it. They pay the money. And they got to get certain things. Same thing internationally. They go on a trip, but we're just not going to let them do anything they want just because they paid $3,000 to go on a trip. Right. What are some of the things that you're teaching, the life skills of earning things with your program so your kids understand that, remember the old Pirates? I don't know if you remember the Pirates Major League team. They used to give stickers, right? Put them on their hat. And there's a big league guys when they did something well. We used to give out baseball cards in the old days, but we'd also take back the baseball card if they did something incorrect.
Right. Yeah. I don't think we have an official program. I know a lot of our youth teams, they'll do like hit stickers and stuff like that. But I think when we really focus on the development of a player, it's rewarding players not for that they had 2 doubles or whatever the case is, but always rewarding on character. Always.
Love it.
For, the way that they treat teammates, highlighting guys, and we love guys that are guys that aren't the best players on the team, but they get it, and you champion a good teammate, or you use those guys as an example, going, hey, say little Johnny, he's a 16 years old. Hey, he's struggling right now. What we loved about him though was, man, he was great 2 weeks ago, and he was bad this week, and let's just call it what it is. He was not good today, but nothing changed, and the player. So focusing on all those things that are outside of baseball, because at the end of the day, I mean, we want our players to play for forever. It's so rare that it happens that, what we really want is we want to see our players to grow up to be great husbands and great leaders in the community and, law abiding citizens. And, that's the stuff that we need. Great dads, right? And so if we focus on those things, they should be better at baseball, but we know they're going to be better down the road. And that's all
Absolutely.
our goal. So.
Absolutely. Love it. Now what I love about that is because we talk about long term and people that, they use excuses sometimes. Oh, by 13, they're interested in other things and there's videos, and I get that. But let me tell you, the good programs, you see their kids playing past 13 years old. They're playing high school, they're playing college, they're going on, not everybody's going to go to pro ball, and that's okay. But you see, and that's because they set up the groundwork so well that the kids have so much fun in what they're doing. They want to come back to play for you guys. Otherwise, they find something else to do if they don't like it. It's simple. It's boring. I'm going to find something else to do. In that case, you talked about failure. We all know the baseball is a game of failure. What are some of the things that you talk to your coaches about working with kids? Because what we always focus on is failing at hitting and failing at pitching. There's a lot more to the game than just pitching and hitting. So how do you work with your coaches? What do you tell your coaches to work on when it comes to a young person failing and to look at the positives that you just mentioned a few minutes ago?
Right. So I think our players follow the lead of what they see at home and what they see from their coach when it comes back to baseball. So if we've got coaches that are get emotional when there's not results or not success on the field, the player is going to start to think the same way. And so having conversations with our coaches, talking about, hey, look, you're like you said, on the hitting side, we know we're going to fail at most of our ages 60 to 70% of the time. Taking away batting averages. Stop worrying about batting averages. Yeah, that guy's hitting 500, but he hasn't hit a ball in the infield the entire year. Who cares what his average is? Talking about quality at bats, talking about, hey, what did you learn in the box? So that does come down to, us and coaches making sure we're all on the same page, and we're focused on the right things, and parents as well. We still use the Mike Matheny article, and we send that out every year. And I think a lot of parents look at that and they go, this is stupid. It's probably one of the most accurate articles that's ever been written,
Agree.
And just our coaches being our instructors, the guys that lead our program, to be able to give examples to coaches and players. And, I know sometimes you tell your same story, right? To people are like, I kind of heard it enough, right? But you want to be able to connect with players. So, I was playing in a summer league. I was after my sophomore year in college, and I struck out 5 times in a game, and so I kind of always lead that conversation with guys who are dealing with fail. I'm like, hey, look, there's 2 guys that hold a league record in the CICL. It's Kirby Puckett and me. And they're like, oh, maybe you used to be really good. It's like, yeah, we both struck out 5 times in one game. Guess what? We got to play tomorrow. And so letting them know that you're going to fail, and it's part of it, how you get through it. It's always process based, I think, is really important for kids, because when mentally they're shut down, there's no growth ever.
I'm sure you have parent meetings, and I'm going to take you a little further, 10 minutes in more, just if you don't mind, because I think it's a great conversation. I'm sure you have some parent meetings. I don't know if it's all in one group, if it's individual coaches with their teams, but I'd love to hear possibly some of the things that are, you can't go over everything, but the most important things that are covered, maybe the first, most important 2 things covered in those parent meetings and player meetings before anything starts, the first practice or anything, begins.
Yeah. So we run a big organizational where we run like the youth guys and then the high school guys, and it'll be a big giant event. I don't think we can do it this year because numbers, don't allow with COVID and everything like that. So, and then we'll run individual team meetings, and really the message is the same however you do it. We do talk about our program, what our focus is, and it's development based. We try to break down the families that are here because they think they're going to win more. Right? Like, we want our teams to win. No one does this because they enjoy losing. Losing sucks. There's no other way to explain it.
Right. There's no other way to say that one.
But so we try to break down the families and understand why they're here. And then the second thing is we kind of talk about what is the relationship between coach and player and parent and player. And a lot of times, there's another article, and I can't remember, I think it's the 6 most important words you can say to your kid, where it's just, I love to watch you play.
Watch you play. Yep.
And talking to parents, like the best time that you can have with a parent and players after that game, when a kid just was either great or they struggled, and they just know, hey, mom and dad still love me either way. When the pressure gets added and they get put in the cooker by not their coaches or not their staff or not their teammates, but it comes from mom and dad, and they're getting beaten up in the car because they struck out twice and kicked the ball, that's not good for a player. And that's a player that doesn't play for very long. And so we've got to explain that to parents. And sometimes I think that's the one conversation where sometimes parents go, you almost see them like sit back and they're actually processing it. It might be the first time they ever heard it. And they might be reflecting and going, man, I do that to Johnny every day. I beat him up all the time. And it's okay. As long as we end that behavior, then the player's going to end up being better. So those are kind of the main things that we focus on with the parents. And I think the last thing that we always tell them is, hey, we spend a ton of time with your kids. I mean, if a kid shows up to every single one of our practices over the course of a year, we're probably going to be with them for 300 or 400 hours in the course of a year. It's a ton of time we spend with them, but we don't spend near as much time as they do at home. And so bringing back, like, I don't want to say beating the parents down, but going, hey, we got to be honest about it. And sometimes parents, you're hurting, but at the end of the day, you're the greatest influence in their life. So how can we support you to fix that? What else can we do? What else can we teach you? If you have questions, come to us, so that's where it comes to it takes a whole village, right?
Yep.
So.
And that's exactly what, like I said, the 3-pronged system, if you don't educate the parents, you could have issues down the line. Something that, could be a little bit debatable, and it depends on what type of program. It could be a travel program, could be something I do internationally and travel. I just believe, and you're seeing it more and more in high school programs, I believe that communication with the parents is critical, because they've got to know what you know, because what you know, they don't know. And trust me, you know this. If you've been in a game, a long time and done a great job, there's no way parents are going to know what you know, simply because that's not what they do for a living. But if you educate them in those areas, I think you're going to gain more respect, because what happens a lot of times is you have a team meeting after a ball game. I'll give you an example. You talk about something, and then, the kid goes home and the parent says, well, what'd you guys talk about? And he'll say something maybe different. Right. Or if the parent didn't like it, they'll try to convince their kid, no, this is the way you should be doing it. Well, now you got lack of communication. So I think it's good to help, have the parents involved in some ways, so they're learning, but also there's a line to draw. Where's that line for you guys?
Yeah, that's an awesome question, because you got to have, like you said, both people are responsible, right? Both groups are responsible. But for us, we kind of, and you always, when we start those meetings, a lot of times we almost feel like a jerk saying, but, we'll tell them, hey, look, no offense. Some of you guys are plumbers. Some of you are electricians. Some of you are nurses. I have no idea how to do any of those things. I will never tell you how to do your job, right? Please don't ever tell us that you have a better way to do something. If you have a question or you don't understand it, we'll talk about it, but come to us, but we have to be speaking the same language. And so we just got to tell them, hey, you're entrusting our program to teach your kid the right way. So for you to then challenge everything we're saying at home, you might as well not even be a part of the program, because the player is going to get lost. When they're on the field, especially for our younger guys, parents don't ever come near the dugout. Like when you let them cross those white lines, they're ours. And it's not because we're trying to be, hey, we're the end all be all. There's confusion if, especially for our younger guys, when, you hear the stories of the dads behind the backstop, giving the kid a curveball, right?
Right.
And we see that in our program, right? And so we have to stop and say, hey, Mr. So-and-so, don't ever do that again. If you do it again, Johnny's not going to play,
Right.
And so, yes, you do have to draw lines. And most of the time, the thing that I've always noticed is parents that are like that, it's because they really care about their kid. And it's not a knock on them. Man, to have a dad or a mom show up to every game, you're lucky, you're blessed, right? But sometimes you got to coach them on how to coach their kid and how to be around. So we've had really good experience with that. And, we've got unbelievable parents in our program, and hey, they make mistakes. We make mistakes. Players make mistakes. We got to get through it.
Well said. Well said. Love it. How about, you hear this a lot, and I think most kids when they go to a baseball game or practice, or they deal with an organization, I think sometimes they get turned off the game if practice isn't as much fun as it possibly could be. I want to get to that, but before I do, playing time. How does that change? Does that change to, depending if they're 7 years old, because everybody's paying, obviously, when they're 7 years old, and then they get older because they're going to have to understand how to deal with playing time, because it's about the best players or the best team at that time.
Yeah. So I think when you're younger, it should be very similar playing time, right? So it doesn't matter if you're the coach's kid and a true shortstop and a true leadoff hitter. That player needs to ride the pine a little bit still, right? We should be splitting out that time, because you can't develop if you're not on the field, right? And that's a hard one for any youth coach to get by, because when you're younger, it is about not just about development, but if you want your team to be good, you do have to win, right? So sometimes it's hard to sit your best player, but you know what? It's really important for that young player to learn how to be a supportive teammate on the bench. So there's some learning process there. I think as the guys get older and older, as they're going through the recruiting process, there are certain players that have to stay in the field at almost all times. If you are a Division I caliber shortstop and you're going through the recruiting process, we can't sub you out. You need to get as many at-bats, as many repetitions as possible. Limited roster sizes for us. I mean, we carry 11 or 12 guys typically on high school rosters, and then if we have pitcher onlys, and that's a way to make sure guys are playing. There's a number. So I coached our 16s this year, and I've had 5 guys that were asked to leave our program and go play for a different program. And I think when we played them this year, they were 40-2, last year they finished 40-2, and they were 20-2 by the time we played them this year. So 60-4, and they were trying to recruit our players for the last year and a half. And when we played them down at the PBR National Championship, we beat them, which was great. It was rewarding for our players. But the bigger thing that was eye-opening for our players was in their dugout, they had 40 players on one team, and we had 13 guys at the game.
Wow.
And so our guys played 20, some of their guys didn't even see the field. What's that doing for you? Kind of the stance that we've always taken with our families is, look, hey, during pool play at the high school level, everyone's going to play. And if you're a bottom 6 guy, it might be 3 or 4 innings this game, and then 3 or 4 innings next game. And once you earn that spot, if you earn more playing time, but all of our guys play. Once we get to an actual championship game, we tell them, hey, we're going to go with the 9 that got us there. But that's one game typically out of 6 or 7. But I think the more that you can get guys on the field, the better off they're going to be. It's really hard to learn on the bench.
Absolutely. And I love the part that you said early on, when you're young, you got to learn to be on the bench, because you got to learn a lot of things that you don't like when you're younger. It's better for you. Michael Jordan always said, I failed more often when I was young. I could have quit, but I kept going. But he failed so much, he learned from it. An example would be playing time. An example would be, playing a different position. I mean, sometimes, you have to do things or failure, right? You fail. If you're able to make decisions when you're young, you fail a little bit. It's a lot easier when you get a little older. What do you do with kids that are 14 years old but they're really good, and maybe they're dominating their area? Do they have an option to go up to the 15-year-old team? Do you have a discussion with parents? How does that work? Or, hate to throw this at you, and you may not have this, but vice versa. If the kid's not ready for that age group, man, and you guys pick most of your players, so maybe they are ready.
Yeah, so you're right. It does go both ways. We don't allow high school freshmen to play down to 14. That's where we say you have to play at grade.
Point.
We'll have play downs from 14 to 13, 13 to 12, 12 to 11. Each family is different, and it's just based on, sometimes we know a player is going to be good. They just haven't grown yet. And it might mean they're on a third 14-year-old team for us, or a first 13-year-old team, right? So 13-year-old competitive baseball is cleaner and sharper than a a silver level 14-year-old tournament. So that it actually makes sense for that player to play 13U on a top team than maybe a 14U third team. As it comes down to players playing from 14 to up or 15 to up, very rarely, most of the stuff is recruiting class-based tournaments.
Mhm.
But a 14-year-old that's really good, we will allow to play 15 after their 14-year-old season is over. Because typically the 15s will play, 2 or 3 weeks after. So give them a little taste of it. But most of the time, keeping guys at grade in the high school level is the way to go.
Great. Greg, couple more things, then we're done. I really appreciate
Yeah.
your time. I know you got your complex sort of worry about. Make sure they're building things right there. We talked about practice. This could be a whole conversation. Really, the thing I'm just interested in when it comes to practice, because you always hear this, let's have fun, because fun does relate to getting better, because you're more interested, you're paying attention more. And sometimes it's up to our coaches to make sure that we're having fun. But really, what does that mean when you say, let's say, you just can't go out and say, let's have fun today in practice. What does that really mean and that the coaches need to do?
Yeah, no, that's there's different types of fun, right? There's, hey, let's just go have a good time and not worry about the results. I think fun to a player is it should be good energy and they should be engaged. If a player is it's just like in school. I mean, a player that's engaged in the learning process, they enjoy it, right? Teachers that can connect with those players or those students, man, they get better a whole lot faster, and they get smarter a whole lot faster. So for us, that engagement process is important. And don't get me wrong, there's going to be some practices that just you drag through them, right? Like how to take a lead off. You can only do that so many times before a player is like, can we move on? Right. But I think when you're engaged and you've got players that are actively listening and actually hearing what you're saying, those are fun practices. I think the worst thing that you can do for a player is, one drill, one coach, 15 guys doing it, and there's wait around time. That's not fun for anybody. So a lot of movement, and that's, when we first started the program, my partners, Andrew and Brian, I said, hey, look, I don't really care about the facility size we have. Like, I feel comfortable being able to run a quality practice if you give me a 12 by 12 room. We'll figure it out, right? Where everyone's doing something and there's a purpose to what we do. And, now we're blessed with this giant facility, but we had to learn how to do it in little spaces, right? We had to learn how to engage people. And sometimes it means more different types of drills or more instructors in a certain area. But yeah, keeping kids engaged. When a kid is engaged, it's fun. It's always fun.
And that's why, Midwest coaches, high school coaches also, and even in the old days, they were some of the best teachers because they only had small rooms. And I remember Gordy Gillespie college team, one of the best in the country, practicing in a gym for like a grammar school. And yet they had great practices. Hey, listen, in the game of baseball in general, when it comes to young kids, the development aspect, I know it's a broad question. What do you see our kids in the U.S. need to learn more when it comes to playing the game of baseball? Is there a general area that they're really weaker in than in another area?
Are you saying actually on the field?
Yeah, let's talk about on the field. Yeah, the game itself.
Yeah. Throwing strikes.
Hmm.
I think we walk way too many guys. I think guys have fallen in love with radar guns, even little guys. I mean, and even hearing a coach say, "Hey, I'd really love to have a guy that I'd like to pick up a new guy that throws 55 miles an hour." Well, a lot of times that guy that throws 55 miles an hour is going to walk the first 6 guys, and you're going to lose, right? So the ability to throw strikes, the ability not to strike out so much, some barrel control. Guys are falling in love with metrics, and metrics are here to stay. I get it. And metrics are important, but I think metrics are for like a higher level player, more long-term. When you start to get guys at the elite level high school or the elite level, college players, like that's where those guys have gone through a lot of it, where now they can start focusing on it. Routine ground balls. I mean, we're talking about the simple stuff here, proper footwork. That's what I see when a guy is a really good player. They hit the baseball, they get the barrel on the ball, they use the full field. They're not falling in love with home runs. They make routine plays. They know how to base run, take leadoffs, and then they play catch well. So I know that's a broad thing, but when we go to the basics, that's it.
No, but that's a lot because basically what you said is playing the game fundamentally sound,
Mhm.
and not just one dimensional. Love it, love it. I think parents, coaches, players in the U.S. and around the world neither hear that. And I think because I'm not blaming Major League Baseball. Major League Baseball is playing a different type of game right now for their own reasons. But that doesn't mean a 10-year-old can't learn how to bunt. I've heard that. Well, we're not going to bunt anymore because they don't bunt in the big leagues. Well, you don't know that kid's going to play in the big leagues. You might have to bunt in high school, bunt in college. There's a lot of areas. I mean, that could be a whole discussion. I'm sure you've got a whole
Yeah.
area on that. And go ahead, add a couple of things, and then we'll close it off.
Yeah, I mean, on bunting, that's like the fight of our lives right now. I mean, with players, it's like, man, you're a 6'8" runner and you refuse to bunt. Like, you know how exciting a bunt is? You get a bunt down and you beat it out, it changes the entire game. So once you get a player to actually do that, they just haven't been taught it, and they don't buy into it because, like you said, they don't see big leaguers bunting. But when they start to do it, it's exciting. It should be a part of their offensive game. So yeah, I love bunting, to be honest. And I know some travel coaches hate it. They're like, oh, why is the guy bunting? He's out to showcase. Yeah, he's out to showcase his speed. Bunting's a part of it.
And if you're showcasing, it's still a game, isn't it?
Yeah,
Or are they just? I mean, I could see if you're just taking BP, but still there. I think you want to show that also. Greg,
yeah,
you've been great. I'm going to close it with this one. The dreadful home ride home when a youngster has a bad game.
yeah.
We mentioned a little bit about it, not much. Your advice to parents, especially, or coaches that are having educational programs for parents, that dreadful ride home because, we always laugh. We say, go home with, if you have two cars, go home with mom, because dad's going to be a little tougher on you.
Yeah.
That's just a fact. Sorry, folks. Don't send me more emails. What's your advice for that ride home for that poor kid, for
Yeah.
parents?
Yeah, no. So I can tell this story a million times. So I had my mom and my dad were very active and around everything. They've been such tremendous parents. But my dad really didn't play baseball. He was a basketball player. My mom didn't really ever play softball or anything like that. So for me, after the games, good or bad, it was always the same because I don't think they really knew enough about the game.
Mm-hmm.
It was so pleasant, and in any sport I played, if I wasn't good, it'd be like, hey, tough game. Yeah, it was. Want to talk about it? No, not really. Okay, move on. So it was so good for me because I never played a sport where I dreaded going. I loved every part about it. My parents loved to watch me play. They were supportive, and that's where you can grow. When a player gets in the car and like I said, mom or dad is like, hey, what is wrong with you? How can you strike out 3 times? That's a player that's on the quit line their whole career. So just for parents just to understand how much these guys are going through, how hard they're trying, right? And I heard somebody say something I think I saw it on Facebook a little while ago, but it was something like, hey, Dad, I never come to your job and stand behind you and scream at you and tell you how to do it. So don't do it to
Yes.
me.
Yes,
So
I saw a video. Actually, there's a video by a progressive group who, is trying to help parents, and they have a dad putting, and the son or daughter's behind them saying, "Now, there's no pressure. Now, make sure your hands are straight. Make sure you do this. Make sure you do that." And it's great.
yeah,
It's because they're reversing the role.
absolutely. Yeah, I saw a hitting video too of the dad was saying something to this kid as the instructor was working with him, and the instructor was like, hey, Dad, you get in here, you hit. And the dad looked absolutely, I mean, he swung through like 5 pitches, looked terrible. And the instructor was trying to make a point like, hey, Dad, it's not that easy. So, yeah.
Great advice, folks. We're not trying to get on parents. We love parents. Parents are part of the process. You love your kids. We're just trying to educate you from the standpoint to help your kids even more. Because, I ride my bike and I see dads sometimes on the fence, they're holding on to the chain link fence like they're going to pull it down. Relax, sit back, let the kids play, understand it's a game of failure. It's not easy to watch them fail, but they're going to learn from it. And if anything, if they ask you a question, then answer it and let them understand, like Joe Mann says, it's part of the game. You got to embrace failure. Now, you don't have to say it's okay, but you got to embrace it and understand it. And I think that's an area that I think we all can get better at because we're all competitive and sometimes, we're
Yeah.
overblown on that area. Greg, anything else? If not, I want to close it off and I want to thank you, man. Any last minute words to our coaches, players, parents in the U.S. or around the world?
Just one more thing I think on the parents is almost every single time our best players are the parents that are sitting down the chair, down the line in a lawn chair, just watching and letting their kid do it. Very rarely do you see that high intensity parent helping out at all. So just love watching your kids play. And as a former player, I can tell you as a player how good that felt just to know mom and dad were mom and dad, and they created the opportunity for me to play, and that was their role. And man, there's so much reward to sport and so much enjoyment if we do it right. So
All right. Well
it.
said, man. Thank you, Greg. Can't thank you. Get back to your construction. I want to wish you good luck this year. Actually, the fall's coming up, so I want to wish you the best with the fall baseball program.
Thanks, Pete. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
All right, folks. That's Greg Blaesing Rheno Baseball, the founder. 2012 started it. Great program. Now you know why they run a great program, and it's a great pilot program. I say pilot. It's a program that I think you can model and use it anywhere. So if you're a first-time coach starting a travel program, this is the stuff to listen to and how to start a great program, because they've been through all the issues and all the problems, the growing pains of developing a program like this, a nationally ranked program. And we're going to put Greg's information. Rhino Baseball will be on Twitter. We'll have Facebook. We'll get his information in case you need to contact them. It'll be on the show notes. So again, special thanks to Greg Blaesing. Special thanks to Brian Kroc, our producer with the Lineup Media Group. And of course, special thanks to everybody in the U.S. and around the world listening to the show. Please don't forget, subscribe, YouTube, Peter Caliendo. You will do us a great favor if you like the show. Also share it. God bless you all. Looking forward to the next show. So have a great day, and we'll see you on the next show.
Thanks, Pete.